Information is what changes you without touching you. Long before wires, people read the world like a ledger, a footprint, a cloud line, a sour smell in milk. All of it carried meaning. Information is not the thing itself. It is the difference the thing makes, measured in choices. A mark on bone can be a calendar. A knot in rope can be a promise you can carry. Writing made memory portable. It let a thought outlive the day it was born. Clay tablets, papyrus, and ink did not just store words. They stored coordination, so strangers could cooperate without meeting. A library is an argument with time. It insists the future deserves the past, filed and findable. The printing press turned scarcity into multiplication. In Europe, Gutenberg's movable type spread in the mid-1400s. A page became less like a relic and more like a tool. When copying is expensive, knowledge moves slowly. When copying is cheap, ideas start traveling without asking permission. Every copy is a decision about what survives. Information travels best when the choices are clear and the losses are predictable. Books helped standardize spelling, diagrams, and numbers over time. They also standardized mistakes. History has always had fingerprints. Indexes and catalogs were early search engines. They were not glamorous, but neither is breathing. The quieter the tool, the more it shapes your life. Great information work often looks like tidy boredom. Electricity gave information a pair of fast shoes. The telegraph made distance feel different. On May 24, 1844, Samuel Morse sent "What Hath God Wrought?" from Washington to Baltimore. Dots and dashes were not poetry. They were an agreement about patterns, and agreements run civilization. The telephone carried the human voice. Suddenly, a message included breath, hesitation, and the tiny music of mood. Radio pushed signals into the air. The channel became a shared space with interference and weather. Speed created a new enemy. Noise learned to ride alongside every message. If you have ever tried to talk over a blender, you know the problem. The channel can turn truth into mush. Engineers needed measurement. They needed a unit for uncertainty. In 1928, Ralph Hartley proposed a practical way to quantify information. He tied information to the number of possible symbol sequences. In plain terms, more possible messages means more potential surprise. This was a quiet shift. Communication stopped being only language and started becoming mathematics. Math does not replace meaning. It gives you handles when meaning is too slippery to hold. Once you can measure uncertainty, you can design around it. Engineering becomes less like guessing and more like building. Claude Shannon arrived as a young engineer with a quiet kind of imagination. He looked at relays and saw logic hiding in hardware. At MIT in 1937, he showed Boolean algebra could describe switching circuits. A year later, his thesis became a paper, and the idea started spreading. A switch can be open or closed, on or off, 1 or 0. That simple choice can stand in for true or false. Once you can build logic, you can build machines that follow it. The computer begins as a physical argument that refuses to get tired. Shannon later worked at Bell Labs. If you want a setting for modern miracles, start with patient minds and very loud equipment. Bell Labs cared about transmission. Shannon cared about guarantees. In 1950, he built a maze-solving mouse called Theseus, partly for fun and partly to make a point. Even his play had a blueprint hiding inside it. He was not chasing a faster gadget. He was chasing a reliable promise about what can be sent. In 1948, Shannon published a mathematical theory of communication. It treated communication as a system with parts: source, encoder, channel, decoder, destination, all arranged like a clean diagram. Shannon separated meaning from delivery. The channel does not care whether you send a lullaby or a grocery list. He measured information by uncertainty. The more predictable the message, the less new it carries when it arrives. He called the measure entropy. It is not doom. It is the math of possibility before a choice is revealed. If you use base 2 for the logarithm, the unit is the bit. A bit is a single fork in the road you can save. The word bit, short for binary digit, came out of Bell Labs. In the 1948 paper, Shannon credits John W. Tukey for the term. Shannon also showed there is a limit, a ceiling you can calculate. That ceiling is a channel's capacity, and it is measured in bits per second. Work under capacity, and coding can outpace noise, at least in principle. The trick is not pretending noise disappears. The trick is adding smart redundancy so the receiver can repair what noise breaks. Compression removes redundancy you do not need. Error correction adds redundancy that you do need and then quietly takes the credit. This is where the math turns almost tender. Reliability is something you design, not something you wish for. Every text message you send rides on these ideas. Every streamed video does too, even if it arrives with a loading spinner that judges you silently. If you have ever wondered why the internet mostly works, this is part of the answer. It is engineering that assumes the world is messy. Good systems expect mistakes. Great systems recover from them without making a speech about it. A computer is not mainly a calculator, it is a bit handler with ambition. It stores choices, flips choices, and routes choices at scale. Bits stack into bytes, and bytes become letters, images, and music. Stored programs put instructions beside data. One machine can wear many masks without changing its body. As memory got cheaper, we saved everything. Then we learned the modern curse. Abundance without attention feels like drowning. Packet switching sliced messages into packets that can travel independently. The receiver stitches them back into one message at the end. In the early 1960s, Paul Baran outlined a network built to survive damage by rerouting around it. A few years later, at Britain's National Physical Laboratory, Donald Davies arrived at a similar approach and gave it a name: packets. In 1969, ARPANET attempted its first message, aiming for login and delivering only hello before the system crashed. It is a perfect origin story, the future arriving, slightly broken, and refusing to stop. This made communication resilient. A web can reroute when a strand breaks. In 1989, at CERN, Tim Berners-Lee proposed the World Wide Web, and soon the first websites were live. It took the internet from a network you could access to a place you could move through. The web made knowledge navigable. Links turned information into paths, and curiosity got a steering wheel. But noise did not retire. It simply learned new disguises. Search became the new librarian. It decides what you see first, and first often feels like what's true. Shannon measured the vessel, not the meaning inside it. That distinction protects something human. It says a love letter and a weather report can share a channel without becoming the same thing. Information is choice under uncertainty. A bit is the smallest honest unit of difference. The history of information is the history of making differences travel. It is how one mind reaches another without being in the same room. The future will bring new channels and new machines. The old work will remain, keeping the signal and refusing the noise. From marks in clay to bits in motion, we learn to remember together. We traded uncertainty for clarity, one decision at a time. You're always welcome here. And remember, it's Illumentary.